I'm recording now. Okay. All right. Round 3. 3, 2, 1. What is up, Bitcoiners? This is CK Snarks, and this is another episode of Bitcoin Magazine Podcast. I'm here with an extremely patient and talented group of Bitcoiners from the MintGox team. We have Desiree Dickerson, also from Lightning Labs, Simon Cowell, also from Bitstamp, and then Christian Moss, who is with, Bitstamp and ZebeDee for Simon, and then Christian Moss is all ZebeDee. These guys are rock stars in the Bitcoin, Lightning, and gaming sphere, and I'm really excited to sit here, pick their brain about why gaming is such a fertile ground for Bitcoin and Lightning adoption, and just get into how cosmic this capability can kind of take both Bitcoin and gaming. Let's just start off with diving into why Bitcoin and gaming. Why are you guys taking so many resources to investigate this area? I want to start off with you, Christian, since you're kind of like the OG Bitcoin gamer.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Sorry, I'm just having a strange feeling of deja vu. Inside joke there. I kind of started playing around with Bitcoin and gaming way back in 2013. I was kind of like a game developer, kind of indie developer, and I heard about Bitcoin, and then I just thought it kind of made a lot of sense. As a game developer, you really, I became a game developer because you get a lot of creativity. You can create characters, you can create worlds, you can change the laws of physics inside a world. The only thing you can't really be too creative with was money, and I was building mainly for iOS at the time, and the only thing that you could do was an in-app purchase. Apple didn't even let me do subscriptions. The kind of subscription model, they didn't allow that for gaming. So I thought if I could use Bitcoin in a game, I could start to kind of be a lot more creative and start to play around with new concepts and ideas. And that's kind of where I see the appeal of Bitcoin in gaming. Obviously there's a lot of kind of low hanging fruit, basic paying with Bitcoin instead of paying with a card, or replacing ads, etc. But I think there's also a lot of cool things that we haven't even thought of, that once we give other developers the tools to start to play around with programmable money in a programmable world, I think we'll excited to see what kind of new concepts and paradigms that will come out of it.
Awesome. And let's go to you, Desiree. I mean, obviously, Simon and Christian work on ZebeDee, which is a Lightning gaming company, but your foothold is a lot more in Lightning as an infrastructure. Can you talk about why you're so interested in gaming in particular?
Yeah, definitely. I am obviously more on like the business side of things at Lightning Labs, and a while ago, last year, I was giving some talks and really focusing kind of on Lightning use cases. It was something that was coming up a lot. How can this actually be used in real world applications? And so I would kind of just break it down. Actually similar to the way that Oleg from Folger Ventures recently kind of mapped out the Lightning ecosystem. And obviously one of those spaces was gaming. It was one of the ones that I really enjoyed speaking about the most, specifically because I think it's just a very logical and inevitable on-ramp for bringing on board new users to Bitcoin and Lightning. People don't want to, or people are hesitant to spend their own money on Bitcoin for the first time. So really a great way to get people on board is to allow them to earn Bitcoin. And obviously games are a great way to do that. So I really just got excited around, things that people were doing in the space. Donner Lab with Bitcoin bounty hunt. It was really cool to see folks who have never played or have never bought Bitcoin before and are playing Bitcoin bounty hunt and are directly onboarding to Lightning. They're not like going to Cash App or Coinbase and buying Bitcoin for the first time. They're going to a Lightning game and earning Bitcoin that way. So for me, I didn't come from specifically the gaming background, but for me, it was really a play where it's like, hey, obviously my main job is Lightning Labs, and we focus on the infrastructure, but how do we get Bitcoin? How do we get Lightning out to the masses? And Lightning is the use cases is most interesting to me, and now it's become more of like a an obsession and something that I love to work on with these guys. So that's kind of really the value that that brought me here, anyways.
Awesome. Very thorough. And then, let's jump to you, Simon. Like, you've been in Bitcoin like Christian for quite some time, obviously kind of going from the exchange side of things and now into gaming and Lightning. What intrigues you most about Lightning and the potential for games?
Yeah, so for me, it was I could certainly see there's a lot of great work being done on the plumbing and infrastructure so that you can use Bitcoin in places where you could already use fiat. But for me, it was a case of, what are the new use cases and behaviors you could have with a programmable digital currency? And the answer is, activities in programmable digital virtual worlds, i.e. games. So instead of making, discrete payments that, have to be a significant size, like micropayments don't really work in fiat. But, in a game, you can have just like, sats value flowing around for different types of interactions and behaviors that weren't previously possible. And we can talk a bit about that when we kind of talk about some of the MintGox games and innovation that Chris is doing. But, for me, I truly believe that this type of gaming economy will come to like outsize the real world economy within our lifetime, and that in the near future, in like the next 5 to 10 years, where whereas when I was a kid, I earned my first pocket money doing a paper round. I think that kids are going to earn their pocket money playing computer games, and that's going to be their first introduction to finance. So I think that's how Lightning is providing a really valuable addition to gaming, and now we've reached that point where okay, now it works. Now we can do it.
So one of my favorite books is The Sovereign Individual, and it's a favorite and famous amongst lots of Bitcoiners. But the key premise here is that the world's economy, the most important parts of the world economy, is going to be uploaded into the internet, and we've kind of seen that. And in the book, they call that the internet needs a digital cash, needs this kind of digital native money. And as that internet economy kind of grows, so will that money. Gaming really seems like one of the very first native places where the world is like completely digital. Do you guys think about these kind of like high level concepts about, this fully digital world at all? Like, what does that make you feel? Let's just go back to Simon, and then maybe we can bounce off from there.
Yeah, I was just going to like get down my copy of The Sovereign Individual from my shelf, but then all my other books would fall down because it's right in the middle of a stack. But yeah, I come from the same position that I think we're talking about totally new behaviors. It's not just e-commerce, which is doing normal commerce, but you can buy stuff on the internet. It's everything is purely digital. Like the interactions are digital, the assets are digital, the companies are all digital. It's a new type of behavior and economy that we're building that is kind of parallel to the real economy. So I'm pretty excited about it. I don't think we're going to get like maybe we're not going to get a metaverse in the way that you have in Ready Player One, but I think we're going to have a lot of value that's going to be created in environments and worlds that are purely digital, and Bitcoin fits that because it is like the most important thing about a digital currency or a money is that other people value it and will accept it in exchange for goods and services. And we Bitcoin has 60 to 70% of the entire crypto market cap, so it makes sense for us to just focus on that right now. But you're going to get entirely new types of jobs and businesses that could now be built, whether it be offering in-game services or designing skins for people, or or getting streaming payments for like assassinating meeting, someone else in a game for Bitcoin. Like, that's the type of thing I think we're going to get, rather than just, selling, teacups or flowers on the internet or something.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Desiree, do you ever think about the sovereign individual? Do you think about the internet economy often when you think about pushing Lightning with gaming?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that really interests me so much is just kind of like the evolution of social networks, and like that's where I kind of see gaming in general going. I mean, we're already seeing that so much. Like kids these days are like, that's how they interact with friends, and it's really just kind of been propelled forward by COVID and quarantine. And so I think as we're pushed more and more to interact virtually, not only just socially, but also through work, like, we're going to be exploring these new worlds. And, yes, we're transacting socially, but like, the money is always kind of the next thing that comes into play in the transfer of value. So I think, I think it's, in that regard, like, this is kind of inevitable. And, I think Bitcoin is on the forefront, and that's really kind of what we're starting to explore with MintGox, is like getting ahead of that and, seeing how we can experiment with kind of the state in which things are right now.
Cool, and I love that you bring up the social aspect, and anecdotally looking at my little brother, looking at other, even people in my generation, younger millennials, they very much interact in the game sphere. Some of my best friends, they keep up just by playing video games. Christian, I guess, do you have anything to add there, and like, do you have something to build off of, maybe like the social aspect of gaming and why it's such a fertile ground for Bitcoin?
Yeah, well, I think kind of agree with everything that everybody said. Like, I think again, it's just really, it's a no-brainer as the world becomes. Obviously, this year's been a bit of a setback. Well, maybe not. Like, the world becomes more global, and maybe this year has kind of made it more global in the digital aspect. People are kind of meeting online a lot more than they would have. Even I guess before. So I've kind of lived in a few different countries, and a lot of friends from different countries, we kind of get online and we play an online game together to try and keep in touch. But now we're kind of doing that in the same country with people who live not far away. So I think it's entering the zeitgeist more and more that, kind of there is this, you have, a presence online, and online is a place where you hang out and socialize more. And it kind of goes hand in hand that, that online would need some sort of universal programmable open money, so yeah, I think it's kind of a no-brainer in that respect.
I think that things like Among Us has been really good, because now old people understand what it means to like socialize in a game rather than having to kill each other. So the tide could turn faster than than you think, once that acceptance from an older generation. But by older I mean like my age, like 30 mid-30s plus.
Yeah. I don't know anybody who isn't elderly who doesn't really play a game in some sort of fashion, right?
Yeah.
So it's just kind of
it's also interesting. It's like it's becoming part of just like normal interaction, like gaming is, because of the virtual sense. Like even at Lightning Labs, yeah, like we do have like a huge contingent who is into gaming, but we are a remote company, but we used to get together every 6 months in person. But now we're like starting to do some of those like longer, like less work focused meetups in games. We like all hung out like very frequently in Animal Crossing on each other's islands when that first came out. And a lot of our like team events, like we'll all play Among Us and like those types of games and stuff. So I think like, it's strange to see like gaming kind of reversing into like everyday life. So I'm like kind of excited about the potential there too.
Yeah, I kind of like to see it though in a way. I think that's what kind of people did before, right? People got together and would play games, right? Remember as a kid, when I guess online gaming, it wasn't a thing, but people would get together and play cards or play Monopoly. And I spoke about this at the Lightning conference. Can't see the logo. of the year, but kind of, it was common to kind of make those games a bit more interesting by, if you're an adult, you might put a bit of money in there. I used to do a poker game where everybody would, it wasn't really gambling, but everybody would like just put $10 in, and at the end, the person would get all the $10. It just makes the game a bit more exciting. And as a kid, I would do the same thing, but with candy. So I kind of think this concept of getting together and socializing over a game with kind of a value transfer in it it's kind of what we've always done. And in a way, that kind of has been that concept, when games became digital, that whole concept just kind of got perverted, because the only way to do kind of the value transfer was through like in-app purchases. So it kind of lost that aspect. And now I kind of feel with Lightning and Bitcoin, we can really bring that kind of that gaming kind of cash feel back to where it was, but now in a more open kind of transnational digital realm.
It never ceases to blow my mind, how much Bitcoin is kind of about reverting back to the old way, right? Like cash was never available prior to this, and the way that the internet and gaming infrastructure kind of developed because of the lack of cash or e-cash or cash, trustless money on the internet. It kind of went in this direction that I think lots of people in the Bitcoin industry are, fearful of and they dislike. And, the fact that now Bitcoin can plug in to the incentive structure as this like open source money standard that anyone can kind of plug into, it presents itself as an opportunity to almost like fix the broken internet and fix and allow the digital realm to kind of move on to the next point, to stop being tethered to this traditional analog system. I see you nodding, Simon. Did all that gibberish mean anything to you?
Yeah, it did. I'm just trying to think of something clever to expand on.
I mean, would you you guys have brought it up in the past, earlier in this call. Christian talked about developing in Apple, and then obviously the App Store having really broken monetization, and very, they put their hands in every developer's pockets really heavily. Other forms of weird incentives and ads and stuff like that kind of make the internet gaming experience suck. For me, I've tried to download just a fun, normal game on my iPhone. I try to pay for it, and there's nothing there. Everything is freemium now. Everything has to do with, watching ads and whatever. So I guess, do you guys think about, can Bitcoin fix gaming? Is gaming broken?
Yeah. I think what our hope is that this will help spur or continue to spur the revolution that's already happening in indie game development. The tools for indie game developers are getting pretty powerful, but all the publishing platforms are walled gardens in the distribution mechanisms. But once you have the tools for an indie game developer to develop a great browser-based game where people can earn a lot of money playing it, and it's really popular, then that gets around the walled gardens that already exist. And then people want to follow the money then, and then Apple and whoever else have to start to kind of open up and accept the new paradigm. So it's definitely empowering in that way. I mean, you could produce a game that could make a staggering amount of money for you and the players who are playing with it. And the existing power structures will then can't ignore it. Epic has started this fight, but I think that we can help take this to the next level.
Can Christian, do you want to talk a little bit?
Yeah, it's really just it's really just a total. It's just in parallel to everything that's happening in every other industry. Obviously, Bitcoin's fighting the financial industry. There's all these super players who hold all the power. And so it's not just in gaming. It's not just in finance. There's so many. There's just so many areas where Bitcoin is just kind of ripping apart the world as we know it, for the better, for most people, and allowing us to rebuild a more fair and equitable structure for every aspect of life.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was kind of technologically driven. So kind of gaming, in a way, there's always been kind of two sides of gaming. You kind of had the walled garden gaming experience, and then you've had the open gaming experience, and that would be something like mobile games and console games compared to kind of PC games, and you kind of see a lot of the innovation happening on the PC games with mods and things like this. But it's and up until now, it's been generally quite a complicated and expensive kind of thing to get into, which is hence, why console games and, mobile games have been more popular. But I think we're starting to see that open up a little bit more. And as Simon said, browsers are becoming a lot more capable of playing games. One of our games at MintGox is a browser game, and we kind of chose to do that because of the freedom it gives. So I kind of think that once we kind of have these, developing games is becoming more open, and playing games is becoming more open, and money itself is becoming more open. You kind of have a holy trinity there of kind of things to kind of really, take it to the next level, I suppose. So that's what I'm excited about.
Des, you?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's just like, obviously Bitcoin's never going to come to like any console anytime soon. It's like the App Store is really difficult, for a lot of folks. Like Jack at Thunder Games is kind of always fighting that battle. But I think like moving towards like Bitcoin's forced to like operate within kind of these confines of like browser-based games, and outside of like these walled gardens of consoles. So it's like, I also think those are the areas that have a very low barrier to entry. Like there's so many people who can't access like, the new PS5, they that's just like either one, like it's not feasible, or like, they're not interested. I know lots of people my age who would love to play games, but it's like, I'm not throwing down like $500 to do for something I'm just going to do casually. So like, if we kind of move towards, browser-based games, I think we can kind of start targeting like a larger audience as well. You're seeing that with like, Among Us, it's just so easy for people to download it and get involved, like obviously still in the App Store, but yeah, I think gaming is going to become for more than just gamers, especially when you enter in the ability to win Bitcoin.
So I kind of want to build off of this because I feel like this is a theme that all three of you have kind of brought up, but like gaming is becoming a viral part of our culture. Maybe it always was, like obviously like analog games, but now like again, you think of people that are millennials, older or younger millennials, they grew up gaming their whole lives, and now dads game. Dads are addicted to video games. So like gaming is almost like this viral thing or video games is like this viral thing that's already happening, and now there's an opportunity to kind of like build to add Bitcoin to that, and to like allow Bitcoin to benefit from gaming's viral rise, right? So can you guys talk about like how you guys see gaming as a way to get Bitcoin into people's hands? And I know you talked about it a little bit, but really, like if you guys can successfully build Bitcoin into the stack that everyone builds games on top of, like that could be one of the most that's like gasoline on Bitcoin's virality as it is. Like Bitcoin's a viral technology, and you guys could be strapping it onto probably the next most viral thing in the world. So I'm just kind of curious, like what's the vision there? And let's jump to you, Simon.
So right now, for people to get Bitcoin, what you have to sign up to an exchange, do KYC AML. You have to already have some wealth that you want to exchange for Bitcoin. That's the real like difficulty right now, is that you actually already have to have some wealth, or like be willing to stack sats and save. So with gaming, the way that most of the games that that we're building, or people around us are building, is that you don't need any Bitcoin to begin with. You just need to play. You need to work in the games, and you can start acquiring tiny bits of Bitcoin. And I'm pretty sure that within the next year, like if you're a really good gamer, like it could be just some like 14-year-old kid in Venezuela, like on it all the time, they could probably like earn themselves enough to live on within a year. Whereas most people would just be like, okay, this is just a really easy way to get it. So you play, Bitcoin Bounce, or you play, Chris's Saratobi, which is, is being, revamped and re-released. You just play that and you acquire Bitcoin. You don't have to do anything until like you finish. You go, oh wow, I got this Bitcoin now. I can just like put it in a wallet. So I think it just like completely removes the friction. You don't even need to like be interested in Bitcoin in the first place. It's just like a cool new game. So I think that the on ramp then just increases massively. Like I don't really know how to put a number on it. Like, because I think that the people who are interested in like investing and saving and trading, like it can't be more than 10% of the global population. Like it's maybe much smaller. Like, so you've got like that whole rest of the population now that has a good, easy way to get into Bitcoin and something that they already enjoy. That's how I think about it.
So I kind of had experience with this, so maybe we can get into this a little bit later. But my first game, like in 2013, was a game that if you played the game would kind of throw Bitcoin at you. And I had like some interesting case studies. I had like there's a kid in Afghanistan who would play it on like an old Android phone, and he was like earning like wasn't a lot of money, but I think about $20 a month, US dollars, and that's good money for like a kid in Afghanistan, right? So I thought that was a quite interesting story, and and just for just the concept that like there have been games where you can earn things, you can earn like kind of game points, but kind of to earn something that doesn't belong to the game, i.e., Bitcoin is this kind of thing that has its own value outside of the game. I think that's kind of a first. And that game was doing really, really well. The only reason I had to stop it was just because of scaling issues. Literally I just couldn't. The scaling issue made it too expensive to kind of send out these kind of small amounts. But here we are. Lightning's here. That's what I was waiting for. And the game actually is getting approved by Apple. We actually had a call with Apple, and they decided to approve it. So we'll be re-releasing it again. So it's going to be a lot interesting to kind of pick up where I left off back in 2015. I stopped it. So quite excited. And I would love to kind of allow people to kind of play with Bitcoin and get onboarded into Bitcoin in a kind of a zero risk kind of way, and kind of start to be educated as well. And not just for getting Bitcoin, they can also kind of improve their gaming experience as well. We can kind of like put a big dent in kind of the evolution of gaming as well.
Yeah, I love the idea of like taking your value out of the game. Like I've spent so much money on Farmville in college. Like, I was broke, and I would just dump money into Farmville, and it's like, for what? I got like, it was a nice stress reliever, but like if I could have actually earned money in Farmville, like I would be so rich, and I probably wouldn't be here.
Like there's also a skill aspect. It's not obviously this is kind of a crude kind of like first iteration of you play a game, and then the game kind of throws money, and that money is kind of funded by ads or kind of sponsors or whatever. But I think you'll start to see real economies develop. I think Animal Crossing has this in kind of a black market kind of way to some extent, but a lot of people make content for games for other users. So you might, you could live in a country where it's difficult to find a job, or you could be too young to get a job, but you're quite good at making skins, for example, right? You're quite good at doing these kind of things. And then you can start to sell your kind of in-game products for Bitcoin in the game, right? So I hope, I kind of think it'll kind of evolve to kind of more, I suppose, interesting economies, will start to open up.
So I think it's like Nukron. There's like a full-fledged marketplace for Animal Crossing stuff.
Well, it's like MintGox started off as a Magic the Gathering exchange too, and I know that that's physical cards, but I feel like there's something kind of poetic about that.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So, Christian, you brought up the point, like obviously on-chain Bitcoin and gaming can be pretty difficult. Like I could see a world where companies kind of have their own proprietary Bitcoin wallet inside the game, and then they have batch transactions to let people withdraw, but that's probably just not very nice for micropayments. But now the emergence of Lightning, obviously, Lightning Labs kind of pioneering LND, and now there's a lot of different clients and different ways that you can interact with the Lightning network. Do you guys want to talk about like Lightning in general. Obviously, all three of you guys are heavily involved in developing on Lightning. Where do you see Lightning going from like a usability and network perspective, and why is kind of having this like instant settlement payment layer so important for the game use case? Let's go to you, Desiree.
Oh wow, yeah, super interesting. Which we should also talk about the ZebeDee wallet, since you mentioned like gaming wallets, because it's absolutely beautiful and everybody should download it and get their gamer tag. Mine is Des, if people want to send me sats. So that's just my little plug for the ZebeDee wallet. Yeah, I mean, I can't even remember the question now, but
why is Lightning so important for gaming, and why is it so important for Bitcoin?
I mean, I think like for me, the interesting piece is like the micropayments, and just like the instantaneous part about it, where there's, instead of just rewarding 1 to 3 people for getting the top 3 prizes, it's like pretty novel that like there's people who are winning like 10 sats and they are just so incredibly pumped about it. I mean, I know in Bitcoin Bounce, like they have like, I don't know, I think it's like 14,000 like monthly active users, and people are just pumped about winning a few sats. So I mean, I think that aspect of it is going to just like really drive engagement. It's like you don't have to be the absolute best. Like for me, it's like, I mean, I love gaming, but I don't necessarily have all the time to like sit around and play like Turbo 84, or like, I mean, I would never be competitive at Bitcoin Rally, but it's worth me playing because like I might just win a few sats and like, hey, Bitcoin goes up to 18K and we're giving away a decent amount of money at every MintGox tournament now. So yeah, for me, it's like, the small, like the ability to pick out all players that I think is really is another aspect. There's so many unique aspects to that, but I think that's going to be really interesting for driving kind of engagement.
So I was gonna say very much a micropayments kind of driven thing, maybe a new paradigm enabled by that. Let's go to you, Simon.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just micropayments; it's like payments, isn't it, that are too small to put on the main blockchain. I mean, so as you said, like you can have these tiny interactions which are really important to make the games work and fun. And Des mentioned our wallet, which is a custodial wallet, so you could use that, but then payments would just be within our walled garden. And the whole point now with Lightning, you could use a different wallet, or you could be running your own node for your own game, and so it's interoperable with what we're doing. You don't have to just use our walled garden. And this is this whole point about the entire internet can take part. They don't all need to like sign up and use our service. We're just making it easy. And without Lightning, you wouldn't have that interoperability, that ability to manage your own money and to build your own like software and infrastructure. So I think that's really important for then mass Bitcoin adoption for this new paradigm where Bitcoin enables new activities on the internet. It means it's not just like a custodial coin that can only be used within one entity because it's too expensive to transact yourself.
Awesome. So we got micropayments, we got interoperability / open standard. Why Lightning is important. Chris, why don't you close it out? Why Lightning for you, and why is that so important?
Oh, I was just going to agree with Simon's point because I think I heard it on one of the Drinks in Quarantine shows, and I actually heard it quite a lot. I think I was speaking to a guy from Unity about it. It's like, why do you need Lightning? Why can't you just use like a centralized game coin, or why can't you just use a credit card? And I think the interoperability point is a big point. The fact that any other company can build a wallet or another game that's instantly compatible with your game because it's on the same kind of Lightning protocol I think is something that a lot of people miss. But to try and add like a third use case about Lightning, so we've got micropayments, we've got interoperability. Maybe it's a boring one, but actually no, I've got 2 ones. I guess one is scaling, but that's a given, really. Just the fact that when I was making my first game in 2015, I should have been a big blocker in a way, the fact that the scaling was hurting my business, but in fact, it made me realize that if my one game does this many transactions, that's just me. We really need a better scaling solution. And the idea that, not every single payment has to be, tiny fraction of a payment has to be recorded on this ledger for, for all of time, I think obviously is where Lightning kind of shines. I suppose also, I want to be careful how I word this, but I wouldn't say reckless, but the fact that I feel that Lightning can kind of, because your interactions are between peers, like Alice and Bob, instead of Alice and Bob and everybody else on the network, it gives us the ability to iterate with new features a lot quicker. Obviously, with Bitcoin, we waiting forever for things like Taproot to be added, and that's understood. That's a good thing. So with Lightning, now we've kind of Alice and Bob want to try out a new thing in a Lightning channel, they can do so without injuring the whole network. I think that's also kind of exciting, the speed that we'll be able to kind of iterate and experiment with new features, which we're kind of already seeing it a little bit with like things like LN URL spec. And I know the ZebeDee, we're kind of experimenting with them kind of new kind of protocols to kind of stream payments and things like this. So I think that's exciting, the kind of the speed that we can kind of innovate now.
Yeah, I mean, over the past 12 months, I mean, even just outside gaming, the amount of like application layer stuff development we've seen, like we've only got that because of Lightning.
Yeah, we can kind of move this fast without breaking the whole network accidentally, like other chains do.
Fingers crossed.
The thing is, obviously, yeah, there's going to be something that obviously that's going to happen, but hopefully a lot less and a lot less severe. I've jinxed it now, haven't I?
So okay, well, obviously you guys are very, very early adopters of the Lightning Network, and the network itself is still very much in its like infancy, right? Let's talk about like a world where the Lightning Network is starting to really become like a dominant place for clearing Bitcoin transactions, and let's just say the majority of Bitcoin transactions are happening on the Lightning layer or network rather than directly on chain like today. What does that kind of like of a network or world where Lightning is a lot more robust and fleshed out, what does that mean for the potential of ZebeDee in gaming in general? Let's go, you, Simon.
I mean, it just means that we can do more, I guess. I don't really have. Yeah, I mean, it just means that we can just grow and scale in the way that we're doing at the moment. I mean, at the moment, like, honestly, we don't see any limitations with the Lightning Network for our particular growth. I mean, right now it's, we can do stuff on chain and we can do stuff custodial, and then we can do stuff on the Lightning Network when needed. And there isn't really, like, the way that we're constructing our business, I don't even see now like a lot of limitations. I think like in a world where you need to like where all commerce is happening on the Lightning Network, then you need to think about the structure of the whole network and are you going to be able to route payments. But for simple business models like us, where we're usually connected to one hop away from our customers or other businesses that we're related to, it's actually fairly easy to manage channels and liquidity at that point. So I don't really see any great problems. And like Lightning Labs are coming up with some awesome solutions for when it does start to be a problem. So I'm not particularly worried about the development. But that wasn't your question, was it? It's like, what's the world look like? Kind of what it looks like now, but just a lot better.
Okay, for sure. And maybe that was a little too cosmic of a question. Do
Okay.
Either Des or Christian, do either of you guys kind of have any thoughts here, or should we jump to the next one?
Well, I mean, I will add that, obviously at Lightning Labs, we're building these products that, we hope that can make it easier to, run your routing node or run your business on Lightning. So, putting products out there like Loop and, recently Pool, which is our non-custodial peer-to-peer marketplace for selling and accessing liquidity. We are putting these products out there to make Lightning easier to use. So like, hearing things like Simon says, like as more and more people onboard to the Lightning Network, hopefully like the tools that we're putting out can help, people manages. I mean, do you remember like the lightning torques? Like that was such a thing, like where people couldn't like struggled so much with inbound. I mean, that was forever ago, and now we have solutions like Loop and now Pool, and you can rent inbound liquidity and whatnot. So I think like obviously like network reliability at some point we can start pushing up against kind of some of those constraints, but that's something that is obviously like improving as we go. So yeah, I mean, it's good to hear people say that, like, really the sky's the limit.
I guess as the engineer here, I kind of see loads of problems, but that's kind of how my brain works, right? Yeah, I guess like kind of two thoughts. One thing, I think that, we're still a long way off from like seeing something like one person, one channel, right? Everybody always gets a channel. I guess like my assumption would be that the Lightning network evolves into a way where it's non-custodial, but you don't necessarily have a channel in a way. There's these kind of shared factories and things like this. But I guess like Lally also somebody is very good to talk about that. So I kind of see big technical changes that will be needed, in order to onboard everybody to Lightning in a non-custodial way. And I'm not saying that everybody has to be non-custodial, but I think it's important that kind of everybody could be if they wanted to, if that makes sense. Another thing I see is also just like interesting, like, is Lightning going to become the de facto way like use Bitcoin? Like in a few years' time, nobody would know what a Bitcoin address is. Like what do you mean the addresses? You play with Bitcoin with invoices, right? At the moment, I think Lightning is still very, very small. Like most people probably heard about Bitcoin, but people who know about Lightning is very, very small. How will that change? Will it just be that most people know about Lightning, and a lot of people have never really used Bitcoin, but they have used Bitcoin through Lightning? I think that's the way it kind of has to be, but to kind of let most people play games, it has to be through Lightning. So that'll be interesting to kind of to see that evolve. And like at that point, do we call it Lightning or do we just call it Bitcoin? Do you know what I mean? It's kind of I think that's going to be interesting to see. Like you can't really dictate which one it's going to be. I guess the community and will decide for itself what terminology it wants to use. But that's kind of a thing that I have at the moment. Do I just say I'm making Bitcoin games, or do I say I'm making Lightning games? Well, I should say I'm making Bitcoin games, but then if I say I'm making Bitcoin games, then people say, well, how does that work with fees? Like, no, I'm actually making Lightning games, so it's a little bit kind of early stage in that kind of respect.
Yeah, what is it? I always say Bitcoin and Lightning gaming, and it's like people are like, well, why do you say both? And I'm like, okay.
We should just go Bitcoin, and kind of like this is going to be like a short-term kind of hump where it's confusing, where people have these kind of early assumptions about Bitcoin. But I think we just stick with Bitcoin as kind of the cutting-edge version of Bitcoin. I don't know, the Lightning. That's how I feel about it at the moment. Anyway, it causes confusion, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bitcoiners make the distinction, and like you're saying, in the future, especially as Lightning Network becomes more ubiquitous, not Bitcoiners probably won't think of it, as distinctly, and it's just going to be, I'm making Bitcoin on this game, right? So I do want to talk about MintGox a little bit. We've gone almost an hour and we haven't talked about MintGox at all. We've talked around MintGox, but I guess Simon, why don't you kind of introduce us to like what is MintGox? How are all three of you guys kind of working together to put on MintGox, and what's the objective of your weekly, monthly streams that you guys put out?
Yeah, I mean the genesis was really sparked by lockdown back in March when all the conferences were cancelled. And we're like, how do we get, like, we were going to go around conferences and like demo the games that we were doing, and then we're like, well, we can't do that. But then we're like, should we like try and like host our own esports tournaments, because they're games, so you can play them online, and that's it's virtual games, virtual currency. That's the best place to do it, surely. So we kind of like batted the idea around, and then I can't even really remember how it all got started, or even like, I think we were just chatting with Des about the games and stuff anyway, and she was like enthusiastic about it. So that was, we just kind of did one as an experiment, not really expecting much from it. But we got, I think even on the first one, I think that was when Bitstamp were really interested as well, and they kind of gave some sponsorship, and BitBank were involved, and we had this Street Fighter game that Chris developed, and we had the exchanges fighting each other, which was pretty cool. And then it just kind of took off from there. Like people liked it. Like it's much better to play to play games and send Bitcoin, like when everyone's doing it virtually, that's the whole point. And so then suddenly you just have like, sats flying around, people interacting, chatting, like different mediums. And then Thunder Games did their mobile games tournament. So it was just like the idea of having virtual events that weren't just Zoom calls, which everyone else was doing. And it was just like, people actually doing activities. And we started out with like, we had like interviews and things like in VR. And we just like to cut some of those out because like, people don't want to see people talking to each other in these events. So it's like, how do you get hundreds of people interacting together rather than just watching something? And it turned out to be pretty fun. And then, I think like Chris has some really good concepts of like how you start to evolve this with like, the streamers and the viewers interacting with the games, which is the really like more exciting thing. I think about the experimentation we're doing. So now we've created this ecosystem of people that want to help us experiment and evolve. It's like a real life human science project. It's really cool. But yeah, anyway, that's how it got going. And like, it's just kind of like taking a life form as its own. Like people, because we made it kind of a community event, like people just started wanting to join and help out and were really enthusiastic about it. So it's really organic, which is what I love about it.
Awesome. Christian, I know that you're doing a lot of the building, especially of the VR world and the games and stuff like that. Do you kind of want to like talk about that development and what's coming up next with is it MintGox number 9 or number 10 coming up next?
9.
Number 9, yeah.
Yeah, kind of. That's my role at ZebeDee was to kind of be the guy who comes up with like these new cool game concepts. And so we kind of built actually. My first games were I did for Bitcoin 2019 as per your T-shirt.
2020,
so, yeah,
unfortunately.
We were going to showcase them at 2020. So I guess for the viewers, I won a Lightning Gaming Hackathon at Bitcoin 2019 and made some concepts. And that kind of helped form ZebeDee. So then we continued to make these games.
Yeah, that's where Chris and I met at Bitcoin 2019.
And that's another company formed at the conference. I'm taking notes here.
We had this funny thing where I'd followed Chris since like 2014 as Mandelduck with the Saratobi game that I played and like, stacked sats in the early days, I guess. And then we agreed to meet up. Like I DM'd him on Twitter and like I'd prepped to like meet this like, Japanese developer. I was wondering, we're going to have like a language barrier. We're going to struggle. And then Chris walks into the lobby and we're like, oh, and he's like, he grew up like, in a town not too far from me in the north of England. And we're just like, oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. Funny time. But yeah, so we kind of, these games, we had like iterated on them and we were going to showcase them at Bitcoin 2020 and a bunch of other conferences. But anyway, I kind of think it's kind of, not a good thing it happened, but there's a silver lining that with MintGox, we're actually able to reach a lot more people, right? And like people don't have to buy a plane ticket and take time off work and travel to, San Francisco, for example. Anybody, it's so accessible. So we actually kind of, like I said, MintGox internally, we say it's been like, a 6, 8, 9 month long hackathon. It feels like we're kind of building it as we're going, so the product is evolving. But specifically, my idea is that it's a great kind of sandbox to start to experiment with kind of what kind of works in like an online esports with Lightning. And what we've kind of found that works is that we kind of have this main esports competition at every MintGox, which has mainly focused around a game I developed, which is basically Mario Kart, but with Bitcoin. We call it Bitcoin Rally. And the idea is that people can qualify and then they can compete in a race. And as they're racing around the track, they can collect coins, as you do in Mario Kart. However, these coins are worth 10 sats each. And the coins can also be used as ammunition to kind of hit other players. So it's kind of an interesting incentive, right? Do you kind of hold on to these coins and cash out at the end, or do you kind of spend your coins to hurt, to kind of slow down other people? And then we also have kind of larger prizes for people who place first, second, and third. So if you win, we might give you like 500,000 sats or something like that. So that's kind of one aspect of it. But we're also kind of experimenting with giving the audience a little bit of interaction. So the audience who watch the live stream of the race, they can also pay a few sats to drop power-ups in that the players can pick up. So in a way, it makes it a lot more fun for the audience. So now they can interact, And we're also experimenting with a function where the game can also send the audience sats out. So for example, if a player hits like a power-up dropped by a sponsor, say something like bit refill, then everybody who's watching can get like a few stats sent to them. So we're really I'm trying to kind of break the fourth wall, the fifth wall, some wall between the players and the game. And I think that's, something you couldn't really have done through, like, you could have done it without Lightning, but then everybody would have to kind of sign up for an account with this payment processor. But now anybody can just go to mintgox.com, get any Lightning wallet, no sign up required. Just kind of, watch the game, get some sats sent to them, send sats to them. It's really kind of exciting and kind of interesting.
So I want to go over to Des. I know that you're pushing MintGox a lot from like the marketing perspective and organizing and stuff like that. I know you guys have expanded from just doing them in English on Sundays to all around the world at different time zones. Can you kind of talk about going beyond just the English speaking Bitcoiner community and reaching a little bit wider?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like I think Chris kind of touched on it, where doing this online and being virtual kind of opens the door to bringing more folks to the table. I mean, conferences, like so many of them are not accessible just because it's like, they're wherever in the world. It costs money, it takes time. Like not everybody wants to fly around the world and, just to attend like one conference, and there's so many conferences to go to. So it's like, this kind of levels the playing field where we can start bringing in people from different areas. Like even at the Lightning conference last year, it was like, we did our best to like have scholarships to bring more people in. But, I think this, like I said, just brings way more people to the table. So yeah, we did we did an Asian time zone focused one, which is actually like much more successful than I had anticipated. We do like this cool Poyo feed integration, and that was like a hit with that audience. So, folks can like feed the chickens directly on the MintGox dashboard. So it's pretty cool. Like, you're watching the stream, you get a little bored, just pull up the Poyo feed and stream some sats and feed those chickens. So that was pretty cool. We're going to start exploring with, like some more Latin American markets and really just kind of opening up the platform to more and more folks. So I think there's a lot of kind of potential there. And we just want to grow the event in general over the next year. We're getting so much interest in this. It's like, I feel like Chris can't like manage, like, everybody wants to play Bitcoin Rally and everybody wants to race. He started hosting qualifiers, with other events like Late Night and Bitcoin Bounty Hunt. We want to start like incorporating these games on a more regular basis. So it's not just like a monthly event. Like we'll have smaller events in between to keep people engaged and, give people the opportunity to play games. And so we're going to create like a more kind of frequent cycle between the events. So yeah, we're really excited to play around with it and build that out. And, we are experimenting with like cool stuff around kind of advertising models or sponsorship models. Like, with Bitrefill, we have this awesome Bitrefill station, and Chris mentioned you can like kind of drive through it and earn some sats, and you got to decide, like, do you throw them at players or do you stack them? And, we're kind of trying to drive like this like circular sponsorship kind of flow where, sponsors are paying for billboards or whatever in the ad or in the games, and then hopefully those players are earning sats, or even audience members are earning sats and like going back and spending those sats at that sponsor. So we're really experimenting with some interesting things like that. So yeah, if people are watching and are interested in like kind of collaborating and partnering on sponsorship, like definitely reach out. We'd love to have folks involved.
Awesome. And I mean, for me, I've just been watching you guys expand. It's really cool to like hear the success in Asia, hear the success with the needing to get more qualifiers, and I'm excited to see when's that big indie developer that's gonna jump in and start enabling sats within their game. I would be very excited to kind of see the shock on some people's faces when they learn that they can earn Bitcoin or interact with Bitcoin on a game that they find to be familiar. Guys, we're kind of getting to the end of the conversation. I want to give you all a chance to give us a last word and then plug where people can learn more about yourselves and your companies and MintGox. Let's go to you, Simon. Why don't you give us your last word and plug yourself?
I would say just come and join us. Just go to mintgox.com. You can, we've just launched the ZebeDee gaming wallet, which is a pretty cool way to interact with the games. And you get some free stats when you download it, so you can kind of get going from the get go. But then, yeah, just get involved and start shooting some noobs for sats, I'd say.
Awesome. Let's go to you, Christian, and then we'll close it out with Desiree.
Yeah, I would say if there's any game developers out there, like even just kind of small hobbyists, and you're interested in kind of experimenting with Lightning in your games, definitely check me out. Hit me up on Twitter, or hit me up. I'm Mandelduck on Twitter, or ZebeDee on Twitter. We have like a fun Discord group where you can join and we kind of chat about game concepts, and we can help you with like the ZebeDee. We should have said this. We actually make a gaming API and SDK to help game developers add Lightning to the game easily without having to worry about all the node and all the complicated, running a node and all this stuff. So if there's any developers out there, definitely get in touch. I'd love to kind of work with you.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I can't encourage people enough to check out mintgox.com. Our next event is actually next weekend on the 29th at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So definitely head on over there for kind of like up-to-date information. Definitely join our Discord. You can follow us on Twitter at mintgox.com. The Discord link is on there. Feel free to DM me. I can send you all the details as well. Yeah, I mean, I think, join us. Like that's the bottom line. Just come, earn some sats. Like you have to do very little, and it's a lot of fun.
Awesome. All right. Well, the three of you guys always appreciate chatting and always appreciate learning a little bit more about Lightning and gaming. I personally am excited to be a part of MintGox number 9. We'll be streaming it over here at Bitcoin Magazine, and I'll be tuning in and dropping some sats on the racers. So if you haven't checked out MintGox yet, make sure to do that. Make sure to check out Bitcoin Magazine and Bitcoin Magazine YouTube. Give us a subscribe. Give us those 5 stars. All the above. Make sure to share and follow all 3 of these fantastic Bitcoiners. All right, guys, thank you very much for listening, and thank you so much for these 3, again, for coming on to the show.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.